Hi, my name is Ken1. I'm from Ligonier, Pennsylvania, a little town about 50 miles east of Pittsburgh. I have been tying flies and fly fishing for almost 35 years. Fly tying has always been something that I've really enjoyed. I've worked in many mediums as an art instructor. Uh, Wood carvings, paintings, watercolors, ceramic sculpture, you name it, I've worked in it. But fly tying has always called to me. It's always been something that I've thoroughly enjoyed. Um, One of the mediums that I particularly enjoy in tying flies is working with foam. And of course, working with foam and rainies. Rainies and foam are synonymous. I've worked with your sheet foam to create mouse patterns. I've worked with your tube foam to create terrestrials. I love your poppers that I've used to create some of my popper patterns. Your diver heads to create some divers. I've worked with all kinds of different mediums. What I want to talk about today is a pattern that I developed based on the concept of a crease fly. Crease fly, of course, we know is just a simple, effective pattern that can be used in freshwater, saltwater. Simply tie where you tie your tail out off the back, your bucktail, whatever fiber that you want, and you cut your foam and you fold your foam over top of the hook to create that effect, and leaving, of course, a little opening in the front to create a crease or for the water to push itself through as you fish it. And I have tied many crease flies, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a frog pattern, and I wanted to create a frog pattern based on the concept of the crease fly. The only problem is if I folded the foam over the hook horizontally instead of vertically, I would have a seam on the side. So what I did is I've just done through some experimentation have developed what I call a little crease frog, or what I'd like to call the fly is Paco's lipstick frog, with the seam being underneath. And I'm going to show you how I created that and how I've been able to use this pattern and develop a pretty interesting fly that floats really great. It casts easy. It's very light, and it creates it's a good looking fly too. It creates an interesting silhouette on the water, a lot of disturbance, it pushes water, and it's really not that difficult to tie. So I'm going to show you how I put that together and how I get it on a hook. Okay, this is what we're after here as far as getting the crease frog built and attached to the hook, with the seam being underneath, of course. And the way I create this is I just take two pieces of foam, a long rectangular piece, roughly about 2 inches long. It can be anywhere from a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inches wide is a good standard size. You can make them bigger if you'd like, depending on the size of the hook that you want to put this on. But for here, we're going to work on just the standard small one here, because this is a good size for fishing for smallmouth bass and largemouth bass, which is really what I enjoy fishing with the most. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take some of this adhesive and we're going to paint. You can see the line I have drawn through my tab just to give me a guide. I'm going to put some of that adhesive down, and then I'm going to take my foam and I'm going to attach this to that tab. Okay, and that pencil line gives me a guide as far as where I want my adhesive. I only want to do a half at a time. Okay, and Zap-A-Gap sets pretty fast. So now we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to put the adhesive on here. But what we want to remember is we want this to this tab has to end up on the inside of the archway. So I'm going to put the adhesive on here. And I'm going to roll this foam around and attach that onto there. I'm just going to press down, let that set up. It usually sets up pretty fast, as you can see. It might separate a little bit, but you can put a little bit of extra glue in there eventually. It's better to use too much glue than not enough. Okay. And then my next step is I want to glue my seams, and I have a seam on the bottom, which I want to put a little bit of adhesive in. And I have seams on the inside. You can see I have one in here that I want to put my adhesive, and in here. And once I make sure I have enough in there, then I'm just going to kind of hold everything together there for a few seconds to allow that all to set up. And when that's set up, what I should have is a shape that looks very much like a archway, covered wagon. You can see an example right there. Okay, that one got a little disformed, but there we go. And this is what you want to start with, okay, because eventually this is going to go on a hook. Okay, to get it ready to go on a hook, we have one more step, and that's to take an X-Acto knife and to run a thin slit right down the middle of that, but you don't want to go all the way through. You really only want to go through the first layer of foam. If that doesn't work for you, you could take a bodkin and heat it and lay it in there and just burn a little trough just for the shaft of the hook to sit down in. Okay? So once you're done there, once you have this built and you have your little, cut a slot in this one too, so we have a couple of them. Run your little knife through there gently, because these things are sharp. So if you overdo it, you'll end up having to throw that piece away. You can see there, I have a nice groove running right down the side. Okay? All right, now we are ready to get the vise out and build a frog. Okay, now the funny part about this fly that you're going to see is very little of it is actually tied, and that might work against me from what you guys are requiring, but I still want you to see this idea because I think that it has some potential, particularly in the fact that if these could somehow be manufactured, you could have some really cool, simple frog patterns made. But anyway, what I do is I just simply put a thread base down, and I'm only going to put a thread base down equal to the length of the tube or the archway. So I'm going to go out to about right here, and if it's a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, it really doesn't make that much difference. I like to use red thread because I like to have a little bit of red on all my poppers. Sometimes I go overboard, but I like a little bit of red to catch the fish's attention. Catch that. So I'm just going to make a few wraps just to seal that thread, and cut that off. And now we're going to adhere this to this tube to the hook. And all I do is I simply turn this upside down, and I put a good glue base on the thread. And I'm going to run the cylinder, making sure that the eye is sticking out. And that is now pretty well attached. Now it's going to be attached even more once we glue it down and stuff, but at this point in time I'm going to stop because now I have the option of whether I want to decorate it, whether I want to leave it white. Now this is where you have to make the decision. So here's an example of one that's been colored with marker, and I don't think I have to go into detail there because that would be the artistic license that the tire can take. But you can color it, you can airbrush it with a Copic marker, you can color it with plain markers. Again, you can buy the frog foam already done. You can do it any way you want. So I won't go into detail there because I think you guys have a pretty good understanding of how that goes. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch this out, and we're going to put this one back in the vise. You can see I've glued eyes on also. I've attached eyes to it and colored it up. And now it's ready for the next step, which is where I'm going to put some adhesive on the back side here on the inside. Not a lot, but enough to get it in there. And then I'm going to press this down. Actually, I'll take it out of the vise to show you here. I'm going to press this down right in the middle. All right, and then what that's going to do is it's going to create two little openings on each side that water can push through when it's being fished, and it's also going to be the two little channels for me to put my legs through. Okay, so once that's set, once that's attached, we're going to just give that another second to hold up. We are ready to basically finish the frog. Now, what I like to do on my particular patterns is I like to coat them with a flex coat or an epoxy or a resin that just makes them more durable. So I'll put a coat on the outside and spin them out. If I'm using 5-minute epoxy, I'll just wipe it on, let it set. You can try some UV resins if that's what you prefer. My favorite is, as in this finished example, the use of flex coat. Flex coat, I think, is just indestructible. It's what you use on rod windings, and it's also flexible. So I usually coat that with that. Once that's coated, then you're ready to attach your fly. So we're going to bypass coating this for now, just so you can see how the frog is assembled. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some round rubber foam. I have 3 strands there, and I'm going to use a pull-through thread where I just simply, or pull-through tool, where I just pull that through, come through the other side, back through the leg, pull that through, and then I have my length that I can just adjust my length by pulling that to where I want it. Cut that, okay, and then I'm going to take this out of the vise. And then I can use a pull-through tool. What I like to do, just how I make mine, is I'll take a bodkin, I'll slightly heat it up, because if it gets too hot you'll melt the foam too much, and I'll just push it through, right through the frog like that, create a little channel. Take my pull-through thread, or my pull-through tool, excuse me, send it through, take my rubber once again, pull it, oops, pull that through, adjust it to the length I want, cut it, and then at this point what I do then is I put this in the vise and I mix up some 5-minute epoxy, put my epoxy in there, let a generous amount of epoxy, which will seal the rubber legs, keep them from ever pulling out, along with these. And then once it's set, I have, you can see how the epoxy's in there, you can see how it's finished. This cannot pull out, it's strong. And then at this point in time, I will just simply take my bodkin and separate the rubber. Right, throw this one in the vise here just to show you. Another one there. You can take my bodkin and I just simply separate all the rubber so that it is more pieces of rubber undulating on the water. You can see how the pieces are separated so that they create more motion on the water. It's called Paco's Lipstick Frog. Reason why I call it lipstick frog is I put a lot of red around the outside. Really like to make it, looks like the frog put too much lipstick on in the morning. But it's a super effective insect, super effective bug, super effective fly to fish with. Not an insect, but a reptile. Great for smallmouth bass, great for largemouth bass. It can be tied bigger and used for other predatory fish. Trout will hit it. It's caught a lot of fish for me, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. Thank you.